Stefan, now I'm not, Krayberger, is it?
Very close.
Very close, Krayberger. Garden of Tane Reserve Management Committee. Please help me with your surname.
Krayberger.
It is Krayberger. Okay, right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very close. Hello, Madam Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for having me. I'm going here on behalf of the Garden of Tane Reserve Management Committee. I'm their secretary, and this is also my first time speaking in this sort of formal context, so forgive me if I wander. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of a history or a short background of the committee first and what we've done. So the Garden of Tane is located reasonably centrally in Akaroa. It's a community facility. It's also an exemplary arboretum, and now, since the last 30-40 years, it's got some exemplary native restoration going on as well, and natural restoration as well as assisted. The Garden of Tane was set up as a reserve in 1986, I believe, and in 2010 was adopted with a reserve management plan. And since then we've been implementing that plan and extending upon it in some areas. So the Garden of Tane was essentially a domain originally. These are some photos up there of it. It included some tennis courts, and it was quite a community facility for the sort of Victorian strolls. This is a look from the top. We've got the domain on the right hand side, and there's a natural division now and what we refer to as the wild wood on the western side, and that has essentially been overrun with natives in quite an appealing way. So we've made a natural division in the wood in the Garden of Tane, which also caters to a bit of a split community opinion about the Garden of Tane, and that one side is appreciated for those classical Victorian qualities and the other for the native qualities. So just going to before the RMC started, there were massive issues with health and safety. There were some dislodged logs that had been dropped and just left above tracks. There was massively slippery tracks and issues for people walking through it. There was massive drainage issues, as still persist today. There was a lack of visitor information, huge infestation of pests, and a massive infestation of invasive weeds. Also, there was a lack of local engagement. It was underused, and it was a frustrating point for the local community. So since then, we've been dealing with that progressively. So we've implemented a massive amount of arborist work. We consider it about a third of the Garden of Tane completed. The same with the tracks. Dangerous logs and health and safety issues have been dealt to. And we have a constant sort of watchdog engagement with it for any issues around that, and we get a lot of feedback from the community and respond to that. We've implemented some drainage improvements, entrance upgrades, including interpretation and visitor information, and also some restoration work, as well as pest control and invasive weed control. Now, in response to that, we've had a massive amount of positive feedback from the community and visitors. As I'm sure you all know, we have cruise ship visitors in Akaroa, and we have a huge number of them go through the Garden of Tane using these upgraded tracks that we have so that they can actually walk through without getting completely muddy and slipping over. We've also had school kids from the local school up there planting, so we've had a lot of community engagement from that front. All in all, it's a slow but very positive development on implementing the reserve management plan. So moving through, our submission summary points are that we support in the long-term plan the allocated funds for 2018 and 19 and through to 2021. Those are what we expected from the 2015 long-term plan, And so we have essentially been implementing our plan according to that 2015 long-term plan and our allocation. So we support the 3 years of allocated funds that we have been given in the current proposed long-term plan. Our second point is that we request that some drainage issues are dealt with from traffic and roading budget. This is because the Garden of Tane essentially sits at the base of a large catchment of Elmer's Valley, and you've got right up on the other side towards Unuku Valley Road. So you can imagine that Garden of Tane is the last point before it hits Beach Road in the lower waterfront. Because of that, you have essentially a discharge pit into the Garden of Tane, and a lot of those issues that we're having with things like upgraded tracks getting washed out in high rainfalls are issues that we see coming from the surrounding water tables, from the roads and overflow systems, and there's clear evidence on the roads above on Unuku Road that that's not essentially able to, it doesn't have the capacity for higher waterfalls. And that's all just running into the Garden of Tane and undermining our work. So we would like to see some of those issues dealt with outside of the Garden of Tane. We'd also like to reinstate some of those future budgets, namely because we're on a trajectory to work with those budgets. So as you have here, there's a 2015 plan there, and the 28 draft plan. So this is looking forward. I just note this is going from 21 and 22 forward. So you're missing the first 3 years, which are matched between the 2015 and 2018 draft plan. And you can clearly see that in the 2018 draft, there's a complete drop-off in funds. And for us, that's a bit of a concern because we have upcoming projects that were mandated in the reserve management plan and indicated. And we're on our way to working on those projects, and we wouldn't be able to do them without the budget. So our fourth point is really around maintenance issues. So a lot of the Garden of Tane funding sits in capital budget. For us, it's for the community as well. It's a park. And we would like to see that there's a closer cooperation with maintenance, which at the moment there's nil communication between, and we've tried hard. And we have had help from our representative council member that quite often comes along to our meetings, but we just don't have a good connection there. And for example, we've done plantings in the Garden of Tane twice now that have been cut down by Delta and maintenance, and for us those plants just sell a sob story, but they have been planted by the school kids, and I think that has a pretty big impact on the community, and it's really frustrating for the volunteer and management members that are putting in that effort. So we would like to see some improved structure around maintenance budget and a clear structure of communication where we can feed into what we're doing and they're aware of it. There's also been a lack of weed control, and we've been doing some of that work as a capital budget, but I think it'd probably be better seen as a maintenance budget issue. So our fifth point is control of funding. So there's been implementation that reserve management committees can no longer hold our own funds. For us, that's frustrated us for small projects. Okay.
Committees are a subcommittee of the community board, and as such they're not an entity, so they're not a legal entity that is able to hold funds. The community board can hold, well, the reserve management committees can have budget, but actually having a bank account in their own name and holding funds is something that isn't possible. So it's something that the community governance team on Banks Peninsula have been working through for a very long time, longer than I've been around. And we need to get a resolution to it.
Can no longer. When did you last hold funds?
We had to get rid of our funds, I believe, around 7 or 8 months ago. I might be wrong on that, but it will be between 6 months and a year ago.
Oh, well, I'll give you another minute because I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just really wanted to understand that.
No, that's all right. I'm sorry for stretching over. Yes, so essentially that's our issue, and that's a real issue for small things, even like volunteer days where we can't buy cookies, for example, and tea. So I'll just go through that, and that's the end of the committee, the end of the presentation.
Well, look, thank you very much. We've got 39 seconds left to go. I think you've made a really powerful presentation, Sarah.
So just what happens if you manage to do some fundraising? Where do you put the money?
Oh, we can't, and we did. For example, we had some money from a discretionary fund that we applied to, and we had to essentially hurriedly get rid of that, and now we don't have any way to hold.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Aaron.
Just around Delta doing any work there, would it not be a better investment or better leveraged if the council paid that money, obviously not to someone that can't get it, but that money went to the community board and then it was dispersed to fund you guys to do the same work? Would you get better value or not really?
I think we would. I'm not 100% sure of why this is, but I've been informed that we are not supposed to implement maintenance. We've been cautious of implementing maintenance work rather than capital budget work, and I'm not sure why that is, but it was certainly presented to me.
But when the maintenance isn't done, you just call it capital work and get on and do it anyway. Which, look, can I just say thank you? I've been to the Garden of Tane and I love it. I think what you are doing there is extraordinary. You have turned what was, quite degraded into an absolute asset for not only the community but for everyone who visits there. So thank you very much for everything that you do. Let's just try and make your life easier, because I think everyone around the table is nodding their heads that they want to do something to help.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.